Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Something Something podcast. My name is Eric Kasloff, and with me, as always, is Larry Sands. How's it going, Larry?
Everything is great, Eric. Man, oh man, we're on a roll with talented interviews.
I know,
I'm
man.
telling you. What is the deal? We're getting really blessed with a bunch of creative people. And it's so good because Eric, you know as well as I know. Obviously being busy is good, but being creatively busy, there's
Yeah.
something kind of magical about it, right?
Yeah, it's one thing I know, we will pretty much say yes to anything which we're pulling back now because of recent events. We've got to, yeah, maybe saying yes isn't always that good of a thing, but when you're able to be busy and focused on one particular project at a time,
Mhm.
it's always good. Like, I'm usually writing a bunch of things at once, but I focus now on just two. And man, is it so much easier than juggling a bunch of different stuff, you know?
Yeah. As a creative, I don't know. It may be just the idea of staying creative, staying busy, you know? I mean, I guess it's a blessing and a curse to be in a position where, you're out and you're able to do things and able to say yes. But then again, it's like you said, you don't want to give that away, I think, you know?
Exactly. And then,
So yeah.
also taking time to just not do anything and watch something or
Hmm.
what me, gaming. As I've realized this year how important video games are to me. And I
Hmm.
know that sounds weird to say. And this other crazy thing, Larry, I have fallen back in love with skateboarding so
Really?
much. Not getting out there and skating. My knees can't handle it. But just going back on YouTube, I found old skateboarding videos. In skateboarding culture, the big thing was the different teams or companies would put out VHS tapes and you would
Right.
buy them at skate shops.
Yeah,
So on YouTube, I found a bunch of my old favorite videos.
that's cool.
And it has just been, oh my God, I remember that. I used to skate that spot. Oh my God, I know that spot. I remember
Wow.
that guy. I had those shoes.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
just rekindled again, being, a very nostalgic person. But Larry, we have, a bunch of podcasts,
Yeah.
something about the unknown, which
Yep.
is coming back. We are going to do something so big in October. It's going to be awesome. But then there's our new one, which is really a passion project for me.
Yeah.
It's called Hey, Let's Do Lunch. And the
Hmm.
whole gimmick of it is on something something we interview a lot of writers, musician, but that is completely film industry focused. And
Hmm.
we have a virtual lunch with someone.
Which is
And
great.
yeah, we had someone on, I think our second or third episode, who was just fantastic and that I discovered through Final Draft's big break competition. Larry, introduce our guest.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is our official something something episode with Sierra Nutkevitch. Hi, Sierra.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's
You're
so nice to be back with
welcome.
you guys.
You're welcome. And I didn't give you a proper, you are a filmmaker. You're a writer, a director, um, are you an editor as well?
I mean, I've done it all. I've worked on every single department on every like on so many different kinds of sets. So I have edited. I think that, but definitely my main focus is writing and directing.
Nice, nice. We talked a lot, obviously, on Let's Do Lunch, and we did a really in-depth discussion with you, about filmmaking and why you're so passionate about it. Tell everybody listening, give a little bit of a history of how you got into filmmaking and really what. what started your passion in filmmaking?
Yeah, I so it's interesting. I've been a storyteller forever. I was the kid at sleepovers who would like tell scary stories. I would like it started with like, oh, I would like repeat ones I'd like read it in like a Goosebumps book or whatever. And then, slowly you take your creative initiative and
Yeah,
control
yeah.
and freak out your friends. But I never thought that that would be what I would do. I was very practical minded. And so I went into pure and applied sciences and I studied mechanical engineering, and then it was miserable. I hated it. I was so and so I dropped out, and I was looking for what I wanted to do. And so actually it's so funny that this we're talking about this today, but I went to Fantasia Film Festival. So I'm from
Oh,
Montreal. So, and
Okay.
Fantasia International Film Festival is this incredible genre festival in Montreal, and it's
Foreshadowing.
foreshadowing, exactly, one of the best in the world. And so I'm a huge fan of Guillermo del Toro, and he was doing a Q&A in front of in front of a documentary that he had been interviewed for. And so I went, and it was my first time ever going to a film festival. And it was just, I got to like ask a question, could not tell you what I asked. I blacked out. I have it recorded somewhere because I knew it was going to be so exciting to me. But we had like a whole back and forth, apparently, like a whole conversation in front of the like
Wow.
250-person audience.
Wow.
And it changed my life. I decided like,
Mm,
okay, no, this is what I want to do. And so I called up every tiny production company in Montreal, and I was like, would you like someone who will work for you for free? And then, one of them did.
wow.
And so I got like a crash course. I did I did their social media. I did blog posts for them. I did sound recording. I did cat ACing. I wrote questions for them. I did editing. I did Photoshop. Like literally, it was a very small operation. And so
Yeah.
I got to like try a lot of stuff, which was amazing. And from there, I just kept going and kept going. And now this is what I do.
Wow.
It's so awesome. We talk about this a lot, and it's coughing. No, having that hustle mindset,
Yeah.
because there's so many people, like I said this the other last interview we did. I knew people who went to big fancy schools to get film degrees. I went to a community college, and none of those people had hustle in them. To go out there and call every production company in Montreal to try to get your foot in the door. So many people feel they're special, so they wait. But then there's people like you who take a battering ram to the door and, say, hey, I'm here. What can I do? And
Hmm.
that's just so awesome of you.
Hmm.
Thank you. I feel like I still see myself as that like scrappy kid who's just trying to make it work all DIY style. Like I still build like my own sets and props for things just because I like one, I'm trying to, save some money. But also I enjoy doing it. I'm bringing in that engineering thing. And like that came first, and then the I was very lucky enough that the fancy film degree came later. I was very lucky that I got to go to grad school in the US in New York, and it was like I always like thought, oh no, I tricked them into letting me in. This is like I'm like the horror writer, comedy writer outsider out here, and like they made a mistake. But you know what? Like, but I kind of feel like that's good. I feel like that gives me that drive, that I'm maintaining that mentality, but I also get to like reap those benefits. So I've been very
Yeah.
lucky in that way. I
Yeah.
don't think that's necessary, to be clear. Anyone listening, I think that any way you find your way into this
Yeah.
is
I I do think though that I think when you first start out and what I really like is, and you still have that passion, you still have that drive, right? And I think that's part of the creative aspect, because once you've kind of made it in your head, whatever making it is, right? Whatever that looks like. I think you can kind of get caught up in that mindset of, I've done it, now I want to do something else in the field, but it becomes a little murky because a filmmaker is a filmmaker. And I think And I think that encompasses a lot of things in the film world. And even creating like social media things. I'm kind of like with Eric. I don't like the word content. We
Yeah.
had a really good discussion about AI with
Oh,
oh my God, it nowadays anybody can become a quote unquote like content creator just by typing into AI, and I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think that's a good thing at all. And I know we're kind of getting off track, but I think this is a discussion that every creator, filmmaker, graphic designer, sound
We'll
design,
do a big one. We'll have you back
yeah.
on to talk
Oh, you
about
know
it
what
with
we
some
should
other
do?
people.
We should have a roundtable discussion about AI and being creative. And Sierra, you'll be a part of that. That would be cool.
sure. I have opinions.
Good.
I
Well,
have
go ahead.
nuance. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, go
Yeah,
ahead.
let's hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I mean it's I think that I think in short it's I and this is something that I always want to be more educated on. I've gone to a few different like workshops and things where like I wanted to know what tools are available and I wanted to know how they're being used and how they're and how they're being made. And the hurdle that I can't really overcome is always just that there all of these models seem to be built on the theft of creatives.
Yeah.
I don't fear that AI is going to replace creatives. I just don't think that it's never going to replace the human touch
Ooh.
because it's soulless. Like I my little brother sent me a like AI like reel on Instagram and it was like whoa so cool and then I watched it and I'm just like this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's there's no like the joke was so stupid. I don't really need to get into it, but like the it was just like there weren't any jokes. I was like any human being, if you had even like someone who is not creative, like my brother's really funny, but like he's an accountant. He makes funnier jokes than like what we're seeing here. And it was just really baffling to me. And so for me, it's like that's the hurdle that like I can understand. Oh yeah, this is a tool, and like I think that there can be arguments made for that, but I
Hmm.
can't overcome that aspect of it. And I can't overcome this like the vitriol that I see with people who are the biggest AI like proponents who are so they'll say like, oh, these creatives are hoarding their skills, but I didn't have those skills, but now I can just make my own thing.
Oh my
And it's like,
God.
but that's they spent years. It's not greed to make something. If
Right.
anything, I think that's one of the most generous acts you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be. I mean, sometimes creation is, a little egotistical because it's like it's your own perspective. But you know what I'm saying? It's like
Oh,
it's a sharing of a
completely.
human
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and AI will never be that.
Never.
Yeah.
It
I'm
will
gonna
never
send
be.
you some, Sierra. There's this YouTuber named Patrick Wilhelm. Have you
Oh yeah,
have you seen his video about AI?
I don't think so.
Look it up. He did this whole thing. There was this whole thing of AI versions of Wes Anderson movies, and they had no life or soul. And the guy who did it said, I went to Chat GPT, I asked it what videos would go viral. It told him a list. One was Star Wars by Wes Anderson. Then he told ChatGPT to write the trailer. And then after that, he took that and went to another thing to make the image. So there was no human input into it whatsoever. And so if you want to go on there and talk trash about AI movies, people can't get offended because you had nothing to do with it. All you did was hit enter.
That's so staggering to me. Like, there's a part of me that's like that. Like, well, some people say like, oh, well, like I used it as a tool to like ideate, to like brainstorm, to this or that. And that was one of the workshops that I went to was like, how can you use it for ideation and so I tested it because I wanted to know. And in the end, it was just like I could. It wasn't ChatGPT that was helpful. It was like the prompts that you put in that like you if you like it just having those prompts, which is like something that we always have as
Yeah.
writers, like
Yeah.
is that was the thing that generated in my brain. And so like at the same time, because I can't help myself, because the exercise was to create something new, completely new, like ideas and teams and things. So I would just like think about, I would just like in my own sort of way, just automatically be like, okay, this prompt and this is what the story would be in this way. And then we had to put it into ChatGPT for that. And their ideas were worse because of course they were, because they have no way of being original because they could only be what already exists.
Then I think
Exactly.
that's what's kind of lost too, because people don't realize that all this AI is based on everything that exists already.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that is new. Um, it's just it's weird. It's a weird thing. It's a very weird and frustrating thing to be talking about because you hear, and I know this is gonna we need to go back, but I think with AI everybody talks about regulation but nobody's doing anything about it. And so I think
Until
as
it starts
creatives,
affecting the CEOs of
well,
companies
yeah.
and the politicians, then AI is going to have a stop put to it.
Exactly, exactly,
This is the thing.
exactly.
Like, where's Disney with it? They're like the most like on top of that copyright. Where are they?
Yeah, yeah,
Here's
yeah.
something interesting. Every other big movie that's come out in the past 2 years has been anti-AI, except for Disney.
Oh,
Because in the
interesting.
Marvels, AI saves a planet. And there was another movie they did where AI, well, I
Well, Age of
forget,
Ultron was anti-AI in its own way because it's like
but
he.
that was before ChatGPT
Oh, fair enough.
existed. This was 2013. It was just, still Skynet. But now I can't remember what it was, but the whole point of it was, hey, maybe AI's not that. Oh, I can't remember what it was, but it's in now. You know who used no AI for their creativity? You, Seer.
That's
So when we had you
Good
on, we
segue.
talked
good.
about a bunch of your shorts, and we had the foreshadowing of the Fantasia Film Festival. So tell us what happened since last time.
So, in a very beautiful full circle moment, my short film, The Golem, is premiering at Fantasia Film Festival, in July, on
Congratulations.
July 26th,
Awesome. I love
8
it.
p.m.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Congratulations. Tell everybody, because obviously we talked about it on Let's Do Lunch, but tell us about the Golem, how it came to be, what it's about, and you wrote it and you obviously directed it, correct?
Mhm.
Yes. How did it come about?
So when during the pandemic, like everyone, I went a little insane. But also I think it was a good time for self-reflection. I know a lot of people really found different things about themselves, and one of the things that I was on a journey of was a de-assimilation process. So I'm Jewish, and I would say like I grew up in a very in a I grew up in a Jewish household. I went to Orthodox shul. I it's a part of who I am and my identity and my family and community culture, all of those things. But there's always just some things that didn't really that don't get passed down because of displacement, pogroms, the Holocaust, anti-Semitism in general. And so I was really trying to find those things and ask those questions. And so in particular, I've always had a fascination with folklore, and so I wanted to know what our folklore was beyond just like beyond biblical ideas. And so because I'm a horror girl at heart, one of the stories that I was really fascinated by was the story of the golem, which is a creature from Jewish folklore. It is a creature made from clay, and it is brought to life by writing the Hebrew word for truth on its forehead. And it's deactivated by erasing the first letter, which turns the word from to the word for death. So from emet to met, truth to death. And so from there, it just sort of like sometimes stories just come to me fully formed, just as is. And the golem was one of those things. And so I wrote a short um, with that story, very much, and it was very much like couched within my. It's not autobiographical at all. It takes place in the 1840s in Poland, in a Jewish village called, like they're called shtetls, but it very much was about like my relationship with my culture as like a queer woman and the way that I love it but feel othered within it. So complicated feelings. And then I looked at that and I was like, oh, that's expensive. And so I ended up writing a feature version of the story. And then when an opportunity came up, I won some grants, and then we fundraised the rest for the budget, and we ended up making the short. And so now I have a short
Wow.
proof of concept for this beautiful feature that I'm
Oh,
working on
I'm
getting
so
made.
proud of
And
you. I know.
oh,
Wow.
thank you.
I
That
mean,
is
I know we
amazing.
only spoke twice, but I'm really proud of you to see you doing this and to dive into your culture because
Hmm.
like with my culture, I talked to you for, being Romany or Gypsy, if you would. A lot of times for us, is when we want to do something different than the tribe, pun intended, you are looked down on. Wait, you want to do something creative? You don't
Mm.
want to follow the line? It's tough. And you just went right there. You used your culture to use the thing that made you feel like another as a positive way. And the Golem is just I've heard about the Golem when I was little, growing up where I did. I had Jewish friends and all. And then that X-Files episode about the Golem. Did you ever see that?
I did. I watched it. So actually, my roommate, she, when I was in pre-production for the Golem, she was like, "We should watch this episode." And you know what? I think that was one of the least offensive depictions of the Golem I've seen on television. Um, it was very interesting. I don't remember it so well in this moment, but the X Files is always. I mean, it's the X Files. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And then The
Um,
Simpsons did it also, which was hilarious. Did you see the Treehouse of Horror?
So this is such an embarrassing thing about me that all of my friends make fun of me for. I've never seen one episode of The Simpsons.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. We
This
didn't have that
interview's
in my
over.
house growing up. I would understand. I That's okay. I get that.
When you were doing research for the Golem, was there anything that surprised you?
You know, I guess there's surprised me. I think everything was like a new discovery about it because it wasn't just us researching the golem because that's like a several like thousand-year-old like myth folklore story because like it's supposedly like the secret to making one is found in the Torah. Um, but the things that I think found to be like surprising and to be new discoveries was researching that time. And so that era, pre-Holocaust Eastern Europe, that's where a lot of my family is from. And so we're from one part of my family is from a place called Ostra Mazakowska. I'm so sorry. I'm absolutely butchering that pronunciation. I've never heard someone else say it out loud other than my guy Zadie, and
It
he didn't
sounds
really like to
perfect
talk
to
about it, but
us.
Yeah.
It sounds perfect.
amazing. I'm glad. So researching that time period is very difficult because a lot of it's a lot of they were very poor communities generally. So obviously not really a lot of access to photography, and also they're communities that were completely wiped out. And so there are no shtetls left in Europe. There is a fake shtetl. Fun fact. That is someone had built one for a movie set, and then they left it there as like supposed to be a museum. And so one of my mentors had suggested, what if you shoot this in Poland? And so that would have sorry, not Poland, well, like in Europe because it's set in Poland or like in a real shtetl. And so I was like, I mean, let's see, because obviously that's a big expense. And would you like to know where the shtetl is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
in Ukraine. And
Wow.
Whoa.
so I have no idea if it exists. I think that's the least of people's concerns with regards
Yeah.
to Ukraine. But it was absolute like just the idea of saying to my parents, "Hi, mom and dad, I'm gonna go shoot my film in a war zone." That just what an absurd. Anyway, so that's a whole digression, but it's such an interesting thing. And so I trying to research anything, what life was actually like was very difficult because we have firsthand accounts. And so a lot of what I ended up finding things in was like primary sources on the YIVO Institute. It's like this archive of Yiddish history, Yiddish work. And that was very difficult because sometimes I would have to translate it because I'm not fluent in Yiddish. And but also fiction, a lot of fiction because a lot of the people creating it was where I was finding those firsthand accounts was people who had been born in shtetls and then later emigrated or also paintings. I found a lot of paintings that like and that was I was way
The
easier to find
silent
those than it was to
films.
find pictures. I'm sorry.
Wasn't there like three silent films about the Golem, like early silent films
There
called The
so
Golem? Yeah.
so that's not but it's not set in like a shtetl. It's set in like
Oh, okay,
a
okay.
town and it's kind of I can only speak to the 1918 one, 1920, I think. That one I don't it's not exactly a great depiction of Jewish people. It's not really like a
Okay.
focal point in the story. And so for me that was like interesting to watch, good research into what the cultural understanding of what a golem is. But for me, like that historical research, what it wasn't the most useful in that score.
Okay. Okay.
So it's helpful actually. It's kind of nice that like there's everyone kind of knows what it is, but there's not a lot of like film depictions, and so it leaves a lot of room for me to
That's
look.
What's
great.
cool about that is like most people don't know it, but then when you talk to someone like me, it's like, oh my God, you're doing something about we could go on and on about
Oh
the
yeah.
history, the other versions of it. Then people like I'm assuming you, Larry, who don't know much about it, you're
Mm.
discovering this cool new thing.
Yeah. I think it's not lost on filmmakers, but I think the creatives that are just starting out, because I think when you talk about stuff that inspires your film, your shorts, things that you've done, and really any type of creative work, it's always interesting to me to listen about, because this is your pre-production, all this research that you did, everything that you found out. Um, was there something that in this research that that brought out more of an understanding about your history being Jewish?
Hmm. Interesting. I oh that's hard to it's because at this point it's like it is all just it's like so interesting. It's words. Sorry, it's
No,
like hard to
yeah,
even like organize my thoughts about it because it just is. It's one of
yeah,
those things that like the door opened and it's just like this entire way of life.
yeah.
I think it really I think it had me returning to questions that I had about my own family history on on all sides because you know I've got there's you know the four or five immigration stories we've got and also it's like because of the circumstances people are really reluctant to talk about it and so I think it just reopened a lot of conversations. Unfortunately I was quite young when well I was very young when my great grandparents passed away and so I couldn't have known what questions to ask but even my Zadie he really didn't like to talk about things like that from my which is common for a lot of people but I had so many questions that like as a teenager I did ask but then later as an adult I'm like oh I wish I could have asked him these things
Yeah.
and so his wife my bubby she they lived with his parents so they lived together with his parents and so she was honestly in many ways the keeper of the stories because
Wow.
his parents would talk and she would listen and so she was able to like to tell me a lot about their background but also about her parents backgrounds and how like her mother her like her mother came from Russia and during the like her family died in the Spanish influenza and like outbreak and all these things and how she had to find ways to come and like lie about her age in order to be able to legally come to Canada and she was like an
Wow.
indentured servant in her own home and it's like all these like so it's stories that like people don't often just share apropos and so that was a really beautiful thing was I got to ask I
Wow.
knew I knew the right thing I knew better how to ask
Wow,
I guess
that's
there was.
amazing. With all the with all this knowledge, when you did you set out to write, obviously, did you sit down and go, I'm gonna write about this, or how did that did it just present itself? And how did that research that you did, how does that fall into your story in the 1850s, no less?
Yeah, I think it was just there's a few things going on. Sometimes when I'm writing, especially when it's like right, I just go into a fugue state and then wake up and like suddenly there's a full draft in front of me. I don't know if you guys feel that way
That's
sometimes
cool.
with
Yeah.
writing. But and then the research comes before, but then the research comes also after in terms of answering questions and kind of solving story problems,
Yeah.
which is a lovely thing. In
Yeah.
choosing the setting, I was very much there's a few things going on. Is that there was a period where it was going to be like set in biblical times. Uh,
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
Same, and then I was like, well, it's a little bit putting like the DIY producer hat on and being like, and to be clear, I had a wonderful producer on this film, Nicole Pagonis, and she just the way that like every crazy idea, it's like, okay, how can we make this happen? But there is like an element of when you're writing, you have to think about that ahead of
Yeah.
time. And so like, okay, well, what do I have access to? Where am I? I'm in New York State. I have access to a lot of like wood, and like what's that going to look like? That could be Europe. What's a different point in my family history that this could be that's more producible than trying to
Yeah.
find a desert. And so that really ended up informing the story a lot. Was okay. Well, I could build a little, or I could find a little shack, and we ended up building it. But we at first it was like, oh, I can find a shack in like a forest that will someone will let me shoot in. Um, but and then the specificity of it being the 1840s was a little bit of historical research, and so I knew I didn't want to tell a Holocaust story. I think they're important. I think that I think that there are so many wonderful, and there's still always so many more stories to tell from it. But I felt like I wanted to do something a little different, because I was at the time I was really feeling like the only stories we were allowed to tell were Holocaust narratives. This was in like we were having a streak of like a bunch of not non-Jewish people being nominated for Oscars for Holocaust films, and I was like, okay, let's do something else. And so in terms of research, it's like, okay, pre-Holocaust, Pale of Settlement, which is this period of time in Eastern Europe where, and particularly like Russian Empire stuff, where Jews were only allowed to live in this one area of land, which encompassed like a bunch of countries, like parts of Poland, Belarus, and Russia, and Lithuania, I think. And so that was how I ended up situating it.
Wow.
wow. And I'm so
Wow.
glad you pointed that out because a lot of times, often people think when they think of Jewish history, it's like this gap. It's, King David, nothing, Holocaust. And maybe Fiddler on the Roof somewhere in the middle, but it's so brave of you. The easy route would have been
Yeah.
doing a Holocaust short. You're guaranteed in the Oscars. It's like they
Hmm.
have that one spot for, yeah, we got to put one of those, but you stuck true to yourself. You were like, no, I'm a horror girl and I want to tell a scary story, about my heritage and my folklore. You owned it, and that's
Yeah.
so cool.
That's very
Thank
cool.
you.
I
That's
feel like
very
I'm an
cool.
older cousin to you right now, just
I
goading over
appreciate the
you.
support. It's having people in your corner. It's always a lovely
Yeah.
thing, and
Yes.
fellow filmmakers
Well,
who
here's
have the
another
same
thing I
love of horror. And
I
Yeah.
sorry, what
wanted
were you
to
saying?
ask you. For the Fantasia Film Festival, are you going to get to do a Q&A after the movie?
I don't know. I don't have that information yet. I have my screening block. It's like we're under like the Destin Imprévisible, like is the name of the program, which means like unpredictable destinies, unpredictable fates. And I'm screening with a bunch of other really lovely films. But I don't know if there's going to be Q&A. I hope so. I feel like it
Okay,
would be so
but
fun.
if there is or there isn't, I guarantee you this is
Oh,
so cool. Someone
yeah.
is going to walk up to you and talk to you, and you're going to be their Del Toro
Yeah.
moment. where they speak to, no, really, think
It
about
is true. Yeah.
there's gonna be some
Yeah.
Canadian girl or guy out there you're gonna be approachable and you're gonna, wow,
Hmm.
if she did it, I can do it. I can tell
Yeah.
my story. It's so awesome. You get
Hmm.
this cool, yeah, it's gonna help your career and get the movie going, but you're gonna sow a seed in someone, and that's
Yeah.
so awesome.
I mean, that's the hope. It's such
Yeah.
a I like can't even it's because you have this self-conception as like scrappy, like young filmmaker doing your thing, and then you sort of, I mean, I don't want to say arrive because I hope I never like arrive. I hope I'm
Yeah.
always like pushing
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
bigger and bigger, but
A hustle
it's
mentality.
Yeah.
yeah, but there is something of like, oh, I can't even imagine that for myself, but I someday that I feel like that's when I'll know of like, ooh, I've made it. Somebody like just was so touched by the film and who didn't know me already. That's also the part of it.
It's gonna happen. Even if they don't talk to you, one day they're gonna be talking about what inspired them, and they're
Hmm.
gonna mention your movie. That's
Yeah.
so cool. And
Yeah.
you've got such a blessed opportunity to do this. And
Yeah.
again, I can't wait to see when I have an opportunity to see it. Are you looking at streaming services to try to get it on after the festival run?
So not I'm not quite there yet. Some PR companies have like reached out to us, which was really like wild. I feel that was when I was like, oh wait, no, this is like it's real because now people are reaching
Yeah.
out to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I think I'm taking it a little bit. It's so early in the run. Like this is just the premiere, and I would love to be able to show it in New York and LA because I there's like so many people and Toronto because so many people in all four of those cities have like worked on it and been a part of this journey with me. And so I'd love to just it feels like four different hometown festivals, and so I'd love
Yeah.
to do that. I mean, we'll see. And like, there's a bunch of Jewish festivals I'm like looking at being,
Oh,
and so I'm a little bit taking it one step at a time with this. And we'll see what the distribution situation becomes.
have you thought
Yeah. Just
about
kind of let it happen.
Screamfest in LA?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Screamfest in LA?
Yeah, I've submitted to that. I'm waiting to hear back. So hey, if a Screenfest person is listening, we're great. You should program us.
Yeah. Yeah. What do
For
you,
those
what do
of
you,
you who don't know, sorry, Larry, Screamfest is pretty much the Sundance of the horror
yeah.
industry. Like, this little movie called Paranormal Activity premiered there, and
I've never seen all 15 of them.
you've never
Never.
seen any of them, Larry, but go back to
All
what you were
15.
saying.
All 15. All 15 I've never seen. Not even the one where the baby jumps up on the crib and jumps off and does somersaults. No, what do you with people that are that are listening, what do you want people to take away from the Golem?
I think that um away from it. I think that for me it's a lot about like showing a very like a strong and complicated woman who is at the center of it. The character is named Beulah and she's played by the incredibly talented Izzy Ray. And I just think that I want people to love her in her complexity. It's just because she's so much a woman ahead of her time who has these desires that do not conform to the time and place in which she's living in, but the values of a Jewish upbringing, these values that I was brought up with, and so these things are so much in conflict with each other. And I think that's why always call the Golem a gothic romantic film, in addition to being a horror film, because gothic romanticism, especially like female gothic romanticism, is all about the externalization and the expression of these monstrous inner desires, the things that are transgressive to societal norms, and that's usually what the monster represents is those transgressions. And so
Mm.
I hope that people leave with questions, wanting to know more and wanting to and having really strong opinions on what she should do, what she should have done, because I leave it in a place of what's next for her, and hopefully and I'm working and that's a little and I get to expand upon that more in the future, and so I'm working on getting that made. And so that question, hopefully some of those questions will hopefully be answered in that.
Yeah.
But that's what I hope people take from the short.
Man, I tell you, just from talking to you, obviously this is a second time, being able to talk to you, but you are so inspiring. And because you've made, I mean, you've made several shorts, more than several shorts, and you've been there and you've been a part of every section of filmmaking, it sounds like. And that's inspiring, and that should like light people like up just to go and just go do it. What's the
Yeah.
point if you don't go do it, then what do you really want to do? I mean, I think that's the bigger question, um that people should ask themselves, what do I really want? And then go back and re-listen to this episode, because you are the epitome of knowing what you want. You take the steps to do what you want, and now you're here. And you're in Fantasia Fest. I mean, come on.
That's
Fantasia, full circle.
so
Yeah,
cool,
yeah,
man.
yeah. It's unbelievable.
It's almost like a screenwriter plotted it.
Yeah,
Truth is stranger than fiction.
yeah.
You couldn't write this stuff. And I think that's the point, because it sounds like, you know, you're not following a script. And if you were, it would be boring if you were following it. You just
You're
let it kind of
following your
happen.
own script
There you
instead of
go.
the script, you know.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
we know you had a hard out at a certain time, and we just want to thank you again for coming on. And, when you come back on after the premiere, you're going to be able
Oh
to tell
yeah.
us everything that happened because I'm holding you to that right now.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. We're in contract. That's
Yes.
Yeah.
the
Yes.
digital handshake.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
but
Yes.
really, thank you so much for coming on. And I know we say this at the end of every show, and it might get meaningless at a point, but you really need to look into supporting New Life Village. What they're doing is amazing and it's helping people. So yeah, everybody. So Sierra, thank you so much for coming on. And everybody, remember, support New Life Village.